Well, it's pretty dark, isn't it? Yeah. Well, here we are. What did I do? Frankly, I don't remember what was going on the last time I checked in, but I think it was something like this. I was working in Blender. Okay, so I got this stuff all blocked in. Okay, so I know this part has not been seen. So she's facing these. I should probably clarify this. So the bad guy leader leaves the room while the other guys are pulling out their weapons, and then she grabs her weapon and kind of brandishes it at these two guys. But behind her, the two ninjas that we've been dealing with up till now, they all do kind of this move. So they pull out their weapons too. And then now this shot, not the background, but the shots of her were all done earlier in Blender Grease Pencil. So I basically created this where she's sort of threatening them. Get back, kind of thing. So it's cool. It's looking good. The problem is, it turns out that there's some dialogue that I missed. Okay. So I think that I'm going to use my new hotkey. My new hotkey is Alt down arrow, which inserts blank keyframes, or well, it inserts cells. I don't know if you'd really call those keyframes actually. And then I can take these and delete them back out, because there's actually supposed to be some dialogue between the bad guy leader guy and Akari. So I'm thinking this is where we'll insert it. She gives up her weapon, and now he's going to kind of lecture her a bit, and there's going to be some interaction. Now, I don't know exactly what the beats are of that conversation at this point, but it amounts to letting her know that her situation is hopeless, and that anyone that the Zen that she was calling to earlier, that ostensibly might be coming to her rescue, is not coming, because he's going to assure her that that he is already indisposed. Martini time. And my sense is that she's going to be leaning towards just kind of seeing this through and maybe going along with the program, but then he makes the mistake here of saying, now that's better, be a good girl. And that's where it all turns south for the bad guys, because he tweaks her, and then it turns into this little threat, and then boom, we're going to have a battle. And in point of fact, this character Zen is going to show up during the battle and be part of it. And I won't give away what happens after that. But where does that put us now? Well, we need to go ahead and do a little bit of cleanup. So I'm thinking this, like, obviously those drawings are woefully incomplete. So let's just go through and do some of the necessary due diligence in terms of cleanup and whatnot that I know I need to do. Sounds like my son is having some fun over there. Well, he's pretty excited because I actually got him a belated Christmas present today, and he got a new graphics tablet. He's been getting into a fair amount of cartooning himself, to the point where I think he's got kind of a waiting list at school of like kids that want him to do caricatures of them, you know, that sort of thing. So that's cool. So I wanted to encourage him in his quest towards greater artistry, and so Yeah. He kind of got surprised with a tablet today, which was, by the way, an XP pen model. I forget what the model was called, but it's not a screen. It's just a regular tablet, but it's got a lot more real estate. Screen area for the the drawing area is way bigger than the one he was using, so that's always nice. You can have a more tactile and intuitive drawing experience. Oops. So this guy's a little bit wild-eyed, you might say, because he's the one who's more sort of shaken up by the whole situation. This probably needs to be a little higher. So I have to say that I am having all kinds of fun. I've enjoyed the work that I did with the blender grease pencil earlier. The problem you run into is when you create these sequences, and you render them out, bring them into here for ink and paint. So the problem I'm going to run into is when I do this sort of thing and then find out, what, like I did here, where I find out there's some new things that you have to insert in there. So what are you going to do? Are you going to go back into Blender, insert the new drawings, tell some more story, and then try to drag it back in? I got to figure that out. At this point, I'm thinking that I probably kind of need, when it comes to the pencil test, it really needs to be either or. It needs to be done completely in one or the other. And frankly, it doesn't matter too much to me which, because I like them both. And for pencil tests, both Blender and OPENTOONZ do a fine job, as you can see. I mean, it's no problem to get these drawings in there. So but this is definitely the most fun, I think, for me, the most fun part of the animation process is really figuring out the storytelling, and then secondarily probably working out the timing. But frankly, I think the storytelling is kind of more fun. So this sort of comic book style storytelling that I'm doing. So this guy's got Psy, which, if you're a fan of the old Frank Miller Daredevil, remember Elektra? She used to use the Psy, and actually so did Bullseye. It was actually just a few weeks ago I sold my... Oh, wait a minute. No, I didn't. It didn't sell. Okay, I have the Frank Miller Daredevil issue where Elektra dies, and she actually gets killed by Bullseye. And I've had it sitting in a plastic bag for quite a few years. Now, technically, this is wrong. I mean, really, if we're going to be strict about it, this should actually be a straight line. Let's go ahead and use the arc tool. I'm going to use my mouse and the arc tool and just boom, 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 boom. Yeah, I don't know if the scale of the blade length is really correct. It maybe needs to be longer, but something of that nature. I don't think we have to sweat it. So yeah, actually, what I had was I had the Frank Miller Wolverine miniseries, which I think came out in 1982. Okay, and I'd like to say I bought that when I was in high school, but the truth is I probably shoplifted it. If the truth be known, I was not the best kid back then, and I probably did shoplift it, but I don't actually remember. So I sold that on eBay, and then I had the Frank Miller Bullseye Electra double issue for sale, and as I recall, that one did not sell. In fact, I think I listed it twice. It just didn't sell. What I don't remember is, I actually think, I'd have to check, but I'm pretty sure that what I did was, the guy that bought the Wolverine miniseries, just as an added bonus, I think I just threw the Bullseye Electra Daredevil issue in there as a nice surprise in the box that I shipped it in, just because it's like, you know what, it's just taking up space here. You know, these comic books, they don't really gain much value over time. I think the Wolverine one was okay. I think for the whole miniseries, it was probably, it might have been $60, $70 probably is about what that was. What that fetched, I don't remember right now exactly how much it was, but it's like, you know, that's respectable for it's a pretty poor investment. I'll tell you, if you want to make your profit by dealing in old comic books in the sense of hoping that they gain value, I'm going to tell you, go into a different business. It's not a very good business. Not a very good business. I've actually got a bunch of, like, well, I should say I had, because I've thrown a lot of things out in the last month. But what I had was a bunch of first issues of, you know, comics that never really did anything, like Arax, Son of Thunder. You know, whoever read that one? No one read that. I just got it because it was the first issue. I thought, oh, maybe this will be worth something someday. You know, what did I know? I was like 18 at the time or something, you know. So anyway, like I said, I'm just having fun here. Drawing my characters. Talking about my comic book memories. One of the ones I really enjoyed a lot when I was in high school was the reprints of Silver Surfer, and they used to bundle. That was like a double-sized comic book every time. I think it came out every 2 months maybe back then. And Jim Starlin's, what the heck was it? Jim Starlin had a series, so there would be a Silver Surfer story, and then there would be this Jim Starlin series, and I can't remember what it's called. It had a long title, if I remember correctly. I don't know whatever happened to Jim Starlin. Probably still out there drawing comic books. One of the interesting people that draws comic books that I never knew this until recently was that Art Sidum. I don't think I'm saying his last name right, by the way. I think it's Sidum, or it's got a strange pronunciation, but it's Suydam. But it turns out he was a really good artist, actually. He did stuff in magazines like Heavy Metal, and he had a little series called the Mudwogs. I think it was the Mudwogs, I believe. And but he was a good painter. I mean, and still is. I mean, he can do a pretty impressive Frazetta knockoff, like a really impressive Frazetta knockoff. Good painter. But it turns out, like myself, he's not just an artist, but he's a musician as well, and I think a fairly accomplished one. So he kind of ran these parallel pursuits, both music and art, comics, whatever. So that's kind of neat. Okay, so this should be like so. Not bad, not bad, not bad. Okay, and I don't know if the way I chose to move this guy is necessarily definitively awesome or anything, I figured we're just cutting to these guys, so boom, boom, boom. Not bad. So, I mean, the first guy sort of gets in position and not much changes in the next shot, whereas this guy's kind of getting around to the position he's going to be in. But yeah, back then Art Sidem was, and again, I'm sorry if I'm saying his name wrong, I'm sure I am. Him and Jeff Jones kind of were similarly. Jeff Jones was more, oh gosh, I would say an artsy-fartsy kind of person. But they both were doing paintings back then that were essentially Frazetta knockoffs or homages, whatever you want to say. In other words, they would have had a harder time having their careers if Frazetta hadn't gone first. Let's put it that way. Not that they weren't really talented. And then Jeff Jones, another artist who was in like heavy metal or I think in France the magazine's called Metal Houlan. I don't know how to speak French, so I don't know how the pronunciation is, but the Americanized version was heavy metal. And then Jeff transition, became a woman, and forget what Jeff Jones' female name was, but and then she died not too long ago. I can't remember. It might have been a suicide. It was like, I think this was a fairly haunted, depressed kind of person who had struggles through a lot of his/her life, I think. So it's always a bummer when that sort of thing happens. Okay, I'm going to give him a little bit. One thing I have been finding myself able to do a little better than I used to is just draw things from all different angles. Like I don't have to necessarily flip the page as much in order to get things accurately. Get things accurate. I'm definitely, as I like to say, I'm spitballing here on the hilt of this blade. This is going to go by real fast, so it's not like we have to really be super picky about it. But at least we want it to be reasonably okay looking, right? Okay, let's see what we have. Okay, so I'm just kind of seeing some energy here in his pose as he turns around, and this hand is actually, what he's doing here is he's reaching back with the other hand to grab, I don't know why I colored that in, that's kind of stupid. But ostensibly, without us really seeing it, the weapons are kept back here somewhere. Obviously, we're fudging a little bit. I think the other one should be something smaller, like a blade, let's see, this would be his left hand. So I think this one should be more like a short blade. And then this one will be the long one. That'll work. Okay, so now let's cheat a little bit. Let's cheat. Let's take this guy, Control C, and I'm going to paste him in there and then go ahead and make the changes that... Okay, that was not supposed to happen. Okay. Yeah, so what I did was I just wanted to just move it a little bit, just to show some change in the motion between those two keyframes. And I guess this should probably actually move this way so that he's not sort of inviting this guy's blade to chop him in the arm, right? Because it's not good when your friend chops your arm. Okay, so let's just see what that feels like. Oh, that's not bad. Okay, this is a little objectionable. Frankly, let's see. This would be... It would actually loop out a bit. And we'll just floop it out that way. So, cool beans. Alright. So now, having done that, I'm gonna, you know what? I'm gonna really cheat. Watch me cheat. I am gonna super cheat here. I am gonna superty-duperty cheat by growing that up a little bit. And I mean, come on, right? It's my show, it's my drawing, I can do what I want. Why can't I just steal one guy's hand and give it to the other guy? I can do that, right? I don't think that's like an offense that's punishable by, you know, jail time or anything. I certainly hope not. Save that. And actually, again, we want to go just size it up a little bit. Okay, now let's clean up the icky poo and give him a little bit more of a thumb action going on. Okay, boom, boom. Hilt. I don't, you know, I should probably do a little research on knife blade or knife hilts, because I'm sure this is like the stupidest looking hilt in the history of cartoons. I'm sure. I'm gonna make this like a what would you call it? I think it would probably be thought of as a okay, I have to be careful here. This could be a politically incorrect thing to say. I think for a Westerner, this hooked curve type blade would suggest something from the Ottoman Empire. Dare I say, an Arab kind of blade. So yeah, is that politically incorrect to say? I don't know. I certainly don't mean any harm. I'm just... it's kind of interesting. I mean, definitely a little different. Okay, so let's go back here. And we'll just say this guy likes his curved blades, man. Alright, and this... So... I think we might have the... Yeah, I don't know what that is. That probably was a blade before. Okay, so... B key. So this blade again has a little bit of curvature to it, and that's probably slightly long. But I mean, I'm just trying to give each of the ninjas a different weapon, basically. There's no big rule about it. I don't know how accurate it is to the Asian tradition of the ninja warrior. I don't even know if they were really supposed to be huge warriors, or if really just stealth and, you know, sort of hiding in plain sight was their modus operandi. I believe it was, but it's an example of sometimes it might be good to do a little bit of research before you start drawing your cartoon. That's what I have her for. She can research this stuff for me and help me not be stupid. Right? Yeah, that's good. I like to not be stupid. Uh-oh, Zuko's begging for a chip. If I tell you, if anybody has potato chips, he'll start asking for chips. Now, before you call the ASPCA on us, we do not, our parrot does not live on junk food, potato chips. He has good quality seed at all times, and he tends to like, you know, we actually eat super good quality food. We eat a lot of organic stuff and a lot of veggies, a lot of greens, a lot of stir fries, a lot of soups. And generally speaking, he'll eat similar stuff to what we eat. Okay, so she says it's not similar, it's actually identical. He eats what we eat, generally speaking, so that is true. Yep, other than avocados. Avocados, apparently they'll kill a parrot. I don't know. They're toxic or something. That's not my area of expertise. She used to work in pet stores, and she's had, you know, other birds in the past, so I kind of defer to her expertise when it comes to the animal stuff, and she kind of defers to my expertise when it comes to, you know, things like music and animation and certain aspects of storytelling or scripting, yada yada yada. You know, everybody's got their things they're good at. So let's see here. Let's pull out and yeah, I mean, that's not bad. Now we got to get his head or his face. Whoa, didn't mean to do that. That's what we call, in OPENTOONZ terminology, a boo-boo. Yep, that's what we call it. It's a boo-boo. Okay, so I'm kind of drawing his eyes as being in shadow just because this is kind of a wide shot, and it's not only wide, but it also goes by pretty fast, so tons and tons of detail isn't actually going to be uber helpful here. Okay, got the chrome dome going on, and got the hair thingy. What do you call that hair thingy? I don't know. I call it a hair thingy. Okay, so yeah, that's a little bit of an awkward pose, but I think being that it's going to go by really fast, something like probably there's going to be some sound effect, but basically, yeah, that's what it's going to be. Okay, so, man, it's been a half an hour. Holy cow. I'll tell you. Time flies when you're cranking out anime. Time flies when you're cranking out anime. Okay, so let's go ahead and go back and see what else is missing. Well, there's actually quite a lot. Now, this guy, I think what I want to do is, yeah, let's go back and, okay, that's interesting. Why is that? Oh, it turns out part of his eye, ha! Part of his eye got touched up in the dialogue layer. Well, now that's obviously, that is a crime you could be jailed for. So, we definitely want to fix that. Okay, so we don't need these lines actually, do we? We do want to kind of adhere to the aesthetic. Frankly, on this close-up, there's not going to be too much more detail than what we see there. So, I want to take a look at this guy here. So it seems to me that his goatee, I don't know what you call these, this style of facial hair, but I think it's a goatee. I know I have a goatee, but when it starts here instead of covering this area, has that got a name? I don't know. I do not know. I literally don't know. And do we want to? Yeah, maybe. Okay, so now let's go ahead and take this guy out of the realm of pure suggestion and into the realm of an actual drawing. I want to keep him simple. Think about animes like One Punch Man and how they draw him. That's kind of what I want to go for on this guy. Really simple. Now this, I could probably leave it as it is, but let's go ahead and just tighten her up a bit. Okay. And he has a headband as well. This seems to be the technique that I find myself favoring insofar as the shading on their masks goes. Okay. And frankly, this should be bolder. Okay. I did the same thing here. I inadvertently put some level of detail that should have been on her in her drawing, the drawing of her. And I seem to have been rushing, and I put the details in the dialogue level. Okay. So basically, the cleanup process here is, it's kind of a proof of concept kind of idea. It's the idea that I don't want to leave this so vague that I could get to the inking part and find out that actually there's stuff that I didn't really have properly figured out. You know, I try to get as much as possible figured out at the so-called pencil test stage. Well, that's not bad. Let's go back. Yeah. Okay. Okay, so that's this drawing. Just want to tighten it up a bit, just so that there's certainty as far as what I'm trying to do here and what it's going to look like when it's inked and colored. Because those sketchy lines can fool you, you know. You sort of draw this stuff and you can see it in your head. If you're an artist, you sort of get used to being able to visualize. And it's tempting sometimes to really move too fast and say, well, I'll fill that detail in later, and when in fact you didn't really have clarity on what that detail was supposed to be. So that's not really happening here too much. It's just something I want to be cognizant of and avoid leaving too much to the imagination. Bam. These, I don't know what you call these. You call them tassels? Are they tassels? They're something. Part of her hair. They're kind of like tassels. Yeah, and so here, again, I don't want this to be too sketchy. I want to really pin down her anatomy. I don't want to leave all this just, shall we say, floofy. We don't want to leave it too floofy. I don't know if floofy's a word, but I'm going to use that word. So S key and then V. Okay, so now it's not like that line's going to matter much, but that's pretty good. So the good thing about drawing stuff like this is, you know, there's not really any wasted effort. I mean, if I put in more detail, than is really needed, that's okay. You know, it's making me better at drawing. You know, it's good practice or whatever. So it's not really much of a downside to it. Looks pretty good. Eraser. There we go. Okay. We're going to have to get to these guys in the background. And we will. We're only going to draw them once, and then we'll cut and paste into the other keyframes. Ew, I don't like that. Amazing how just the slightest error on either the positioning or the shape of someone's nose can really change the way they look. It's actually quite remarkable. Mm-hmm. Okay, and with that, I'm going to call it good for now. I'm sure, as usual, I will definitely be back later.